Hello, I'm Nestor Olarte Vinluan, Professor Emeritus, former Dean of the UP College of Fine Arts, and a practicing visual artist for more than 50 years now. I will be talking about a work by José Joya in the Cultural Center of the Philippines 21 AM collection titled Dimensions of Fear. The work of National Artist José Joya, entitled Dimensions of Fear, was completed in 1965. That year, I was a freshman student in the University of the Philippines, enrolled in the College of Fine Arts. José Joya was a professor then in the college, teaching painting courses. I remember vividly seeing his winning entry in the National Shell Art Competition titled Gossips, displayed at the lobby of the Palma Hall in UP, together with the winning works of other artists like Ang Kyu Kok, Jovinal Sanso, and Angel Cacña. As a young student aspiring to be an artist, I did not understand abstraction at first and was into representational artworks, meaning figurative painting. Until one day, I attended one of Professor Joya's exhibitions that was held at the Luz Gallery in Manila, where he also conducted a lecture about his works. This introduced me to the different dimensions of abstract art, including color, lines, movement, texture, etc. As his student, I was privileged to be invited by Professor Joya to work with him on a large-scale commission project he had. It was during the time that I personally witnessed his technique and style in painting. He taught me how to use the spatula as a tool in working with texture and gestural techniques, at the same time coaching on composition. I was one of the few students selected by him to be part of the workshops and lectures on art he conducted in other regions in the Philippines, such as in Naga City and in the University of the Philippines, Cebu. In January 1978, then Dean José Joya came to represent our country in the Philippine Art Show held at the Exhibition Hall of the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C., USA, while I was the representative junior artist. This show was a collection of contemporary art from the Philippines. In February of the same year, the Philippine Art Show exhibition moved to the Sepia Print Workshop at 22 Wooster Street, New York City, USA. There, Dean Joya and I had a personal encounter with the late Andy Warhol in his New York studio. If I may describe the painting Dimensions of Fear by National Artist José Joya, it is a painting oriented in the horizontal format in an approximate 3.5 feet by 10 feet dimension, done in oil on canvas. Artists sometimes title their works as a clue to the meaning of their works. As I look at the painting, it says much about the title. One feels a dark, foreboding mood as it shows reds and blacks. I would say that the artist did this piece with a first layer of reds over the canvas, leaving only a small white area in the upper part, giving an impression or a sense of a white horizon. He then painted very strong black lines over the reds, which he applied in strong wild draw gestures, possibly using a hardened brush, palette knife, or pointed sticks in the process, or maybe the wooden end of a brush. These were done in diagonally oriented strokes. He then added another layer of brushwork, starting from the upper right portion of the canvas, directing his tool diagonally downwards to the left, creating several curvilinear strokes or slivers, with the most part using splashes of grays and whites, forming a mound-like shape. To my mind, I see in this work a landscape rendered in swift and strong gestural manner that characterizes Joya's style. His other works done around the same year, 1965, are actually very similar to this work in terms of style, strokes, gestures, texture, movement, and composition, varying only in the use of colors. This can be seen in Gray Afternoon, 1965, Flagellants, 1965, Karate, 1965, Hills of Nico, 1964. Interestingly, there's a work of his done in 1964 titled Quiapo Nazarene Festival, which really looks very similar and which I believe was a prelude to his Dimensions of Fear painting. I believe that at the time he created Dimensions of Fear, as well as his other works from the mid-50s, he was largely influenced by his travel and studies in Europe, particularly in Spain, where he won a scholarship to the Instituto de Cultura Hispanica in Madrid in 1954 to 1955, and in the US in Cranbrook Academy of Art in 1956 to 1957, and later at the Pratt Institute in New York City, where he embraced abstraction. Early on in his artistic career, firstly as a student, Joya was into classical and traditional ways of painting. This can be seen in Old Woman, 1952, The Pipeline, 1949, Approaching Storm, 1951. After his travels and studies abroad from 1954 to 57, his style changed drastically to abstraction, which he pursued till the end. His early abstraction, which included Dimensions of Fear, were done in strong gestures of lines, slivers, mostly diagonally painted on canvas, showing movement. In the 60s, he started adding some hint of irregular geometric shapes to the linear strokes, until his painting style in the 70s through the 80s was dominated by solid, irregular geometric shapes done in an interlocking, overlapping pattern using bold strokes as well as neutrals. He later used transparency to enhance depth by doing collages, pasting translucent, textured oriental paper over a painted solid color way through the 90s. This can be seen in Fire Dance, 1974, Red Talisman, 1975, Blue Sonata, 1989. As an artist, José Joya was prolific, untiring, and disciplined in producing many works in his lifetime. His paintings all reflect his creativity and send a strong, intense, and definite message of his character and style. Even when he transitioned from representational forms to borrowing styles in abstraction, I see a consistency in his technique, using impasto, where one can see his raw, strong brushworks and texture. I would say that he was an artist who had a great color sense, in that the use and combination of colors in his compositions create a highly sophisticated work of art. His playfulness with colors and his painting technique brings life to his works that can engage and impress the viewer. The legacy of Professor Joya to me is to be serious and focused in my work. He encouraged me to apply for scholarships. He also taught me, by way of example, how to teach my students to work continuously with their art and to encourage them to exhibit their works. He even bought some of our works when we were students, and it helped us not only financially, but also uplift our spirits. I believe his influence can be seen in the works of abstraction practitioners, particularly among those who work with him. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Cultural Cash Online.